Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about what happens if the world abandons the US dollar, okay, which is becoming ever more likely to happen. I did a video on this yesterday. I think the tipping point was when the United States froze Russian assets, okay, and started attempts to confiscate like $300 billion of money that belonged to Russia. And the rest of the world was looking at it and saying, wait a second, how can you just like unilaterally decide that you're going to take their money? And the problem is the United States is very used to doing that type of things. Okay, if they don't like you, they can trump up some phony charges, convict you in a kangaroo court, and basically just go into your bank accounts and take whatever you got. Okay, so the United States has become very comfortable with doing that type of thing. They did it to Russia, and the rest of the world looked at that and they said, wait a second, if they can do that to a big country on Russia, imagine what they can do to us. I mean, they could take all of our money in a heartbeat, and probably nobody else around the world would probably even notice. Okay, so there's been a renewed push around the world, renewed interest around the world to get away from, to stop using the US dollars. Now, the US dollars are basically an international currency. A very large percentage of business transactions that happen around the world, they happen in US dollars, okay? And they go through the SWIFT payment system, which again, the United States controls. So they control the dollars, and they basically control the plumbing, right? The plumbing lines over which those US dollars move back and forth. So this thing that happened in Russia was kind of like a wake-up call, and an alternative to the G7 nations, right, to that club, is the BRICS, which actually goes all the way back to 1995. It's more of like a club, right, where they, there's two sides of it. Like there's two ways that BRICS works. They on the one hand try to work through like work with the G7 nations, with the with the current system, basically, to try and make changes that benefit its member nations. And the other way that they work is they try to replace it. Okay, so this year Russia, I think they are chairing, okay, BRICS, which obviously Russia has a big interest in coming up with some other payment system and some other monetary system that the United States does not control. Now, I did a video on this yesterday on this BRICS. The original members of this are Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Okay, I screwed that up yesterday. South Africa. Okay, they're the original members of this, but I think there's up to like 40 countries that are either part of it or trying to be part of it. And they recently, even France tried to get in on this, and they rejected France. But they're trying, BRICS is trying to come up with an alternative monetary system. And Russia is chairing it this year. So yeah, now that's going to be our big incentive to get away from the US dollar. So what we're going to be talking about in this video is like, what happens if they succeed, okay? Because remember, there's more US dollars outside the United States than inside of the United States, okay? So what happens is, if all of a sudden all these US dollars around the world are worthless, right? Well, what are people going to do with it? They're going to send it back to the United States. Like, here's your worthless money, which basically the United States is then going to get flooded with US dollars, which is going to make, the way we see it is we see it as inflation, which is going to probably turn into like rapid inflation, and then eventually like hyperinflation. So how is this going to work out? What are some possibilities? Now, I've mentioned this before. My background is accounting. Okay, I did accounting for many years. I was a controller. I was a chief financial officer for an import-export company for several years. So I have a background in accounting, which kind of allows me to kind of wrap my head around this, because there's no economics book that you can open up that's going to really explain this stuff to you. You kind of have to look, between the lines. Okay, so just to put things in perspective, the total U.S. dollars worldwide, right, on the entire Earth that have been created is somewhere between 20 and 25 trillion dollars. Okay, that's the total U.S. dollars that have been created. Okay, we'll talk about how it's created in a minute, but that's the total U.S. dollars. Now, if we look at just the U.S. national debt alone, right, that's like somewhere around 35 trillion. Okay, so there's not enough U.S. dollars in the entire world, all right, currently, to pay the national debt. Okay, so how is that, now if you add on top of it, because you got the national debt of the United States, but what if you add the debt of individuals, of corporations, of other countries around the world? I think the total debt goes up to somewhere around $75 trillion. Okay, so there's $75 trillion of worldwide debt that, this is just the debt I think that's accounted for, right? It probably more, it might be 100 trillion, but it's somewhere in that area. And there's only 20 to 25 trillion to pay for this. So how is this possible? How does this, how can such a situation exist where you owe more money than money exists to pay for it? So the way it works is banks create money. Okay, they take in assets and they use those assets to create money. And this isn't like National Bank. This is like your local bank. What happens is when you get a mortgage on your house, right, they take the deed to the house, right? They take ownership of the house and they use that asset to create money. Okay, the banking rules allow it for that. Okay, so, or if you finance a car, they use that car, they take the title to that car and they create money. Okay, or if you own a gold mine and you dig up gold and you give the gold to the bank uses the gold to create money. So a lot of people say, oh, well, we should go back to a gold-based system. We are, right? We're basically on an asset-based system. I mean, if you don't want to put up a house, you can put up gold if you want. The problem is that most people don't have a gold mine to go mine gold and give that to the bank to create money. Okay, most people have access to cars and houses. That's what they usually use to create money. So the problem with the gold-based system is the people that control the gold mines would have a lot of control of that monetary system. So the idea that they came up with was, rather than have the gold mine owners control the monetary system, let's have all the people, be able to create money by putting up their assets. Okay, that's the idea, and the truth is that it is a brilliant idea that kind of scales to to a growing economy. Okay, if left alone without government intervention and government abuse, it would be a beautiful system that works really good. Okay, so now the way that works is when the bank creates money, they take your asset and they create money. They don't create the interest. So if you, let's say, get a mortgage for $200,000 on a house, right, with the interest, you're going to end up having to pay the bank back $300,000. Okay, so the bank never created that extra $100,000. So you borrow $200,000, right? The bank creates $200,000. Okay, but you owe $300,000. So where's that extra $100,000? Now this is across the entire economy. Okay, everybody's doing this. So at all times there's more debt than there's money to pay it. So it's a Ponzi scheme. Okay, the way the system works is the current generation of borrowers depends on the next generation of borrowers to come in and create more money, so that the interest will exist so that they can pay back their full debt. And then that generation of borrowers depends on the next generation of borrowers, and the system is allowed to grow like that slowly. Okay, and everything's kind of like in balance. It doesn't look like it's like if it wasn't for the fact that we're in the trillions of dollars now, nobody would nobody outside of bankers, right? Not even accountants, right? Nobody outside of bankers would know how this system really works. But the number trillion is so big, okay, that a trillion seconds is 31,000 years, right? So a million seconds, 7 days. A billion seconds, 31 years. A trillion seconds, 31,000 years. So when we get up into the trillions of dollars of debt, all right, that are being created like annually, people that understand numbers look at this and say, wait a second, where are you getting $1 trillion from? There's $1 trillion in the entire universe. And that's how everybody knows what's going on. And this system kind of depends on people really not being aware that it's a Ponzi scheme. Okay, once everybody's aware that it's a Ponzi scheme, the thing starts breaking down, right? Because the nature of the Ponzi scheme is, you don't want to be at the end of the line, because remember, if you're on the Ponzi scheme, you got to bring in somebody else to basically, you got to bring in extra people to keep the system going. But if you're like the last guy in, and there's nobody else coming in after you, I mean, you're in deep shit. Okay, you're gonna lose everything. So that's the nature of the system. Now, this system would have worked if it was allowed to just grow naturally without government intervention. The problem with the system is that the U.S. government, they don't put up real assets to create money like we do, right? We got to put up cars and houses and whatever. The government puts up debt. They basically give themselves an IOU. And because they don't have to put up assets, they're able to create an unlimited amount of money, okay? So when the government, like up until the point that they got into the trillions, when they were like back in the early 80s, when the national debt was like 500 billion, 700 billion, and I kind of I have a vague recollection of those numbers. So when it was under $1 trillion, it was no big deal because the government was a small part of the whole system, okay? But once they went over $1 trillion, they started becoming so big that, again, the nature of the Ponzi scheme is you got to bring in somebody like yourself, like somebody's got to come in after you of equal size to keep the system going. So as the government became a bigger part of this system, there's nobody else that the government can bring in that's the size of the U.S. government to kind of keep the system in balance and growing, okay? So that's why now we're in a situation where the government owes like $35 trillion of debt, right? And there's only $20 to $25 trillion of cash worldwide, or of U.S. dollars worldwide. And everybody around the world is looking at this and saying, this whole system that you got here is complete bullshit. And everybody knows it's bullshit. And now everybody is looking to get out, as fast as possible before the system crashes, right? Because that's what Ponzi schemes do. They crash in on themselves, okay? So everybody's looking to get out of this system. And now, this is a priority of the BRICS, the BRICS nations, or member nations. They are growing because the G7 countries, their total GDP, right, gross domestic product, is like 30% of the world. Well, the BRICS member nations, they are now 32%. So BRICS is actually, the BRICS member nations are bigger than the G7 member nations, okay? So it's becoming more and more likely that the U.S. financial system, the U.S. dollar, is going to crash because people around the world have become very aware that's a Ponzi scheme, and also a large number of nations have made it a priority to get away from the U.S. dollar. Okay, they're making that a priority. And again, the tipping point was the colossal mistake that Biden Democrats made. First of all, in provoking, because I think it provoked this war between Russia and Ukraine, because they thought that they were going to basically destroy Russia, right, or bankrupt Russia, and they didn't realize that Russia, they just made a deal with other people, with other countries like India, China, Pakistan, Brazil, South Africa. it made deals with them, right? And all the oil that it was going to be, let's say, selling to Europe, it's now selling to China. Okay, so Russia hasn't lost anything. Okay, they've in fact, as far as I can tell, economically, Russia is in the best position that it has ever been. Like even when it was the Soviet Union. Okay, they are like in the best financial position right now than they have ever been. So this Biden Democrats' plan has blown up in their face. And what's happening, the reality of it is that the United States has coming out of this provoked war weaker than it has ever been. And the prospects going further, going forward, are that as the world moves away from the U.S. dollar, the United States is going to become the weakest that it has been probably since the early 1900s. Okay, that's where I think we're going at. Okay, so here's the thing: the United States, its most powerful weapon is not the nuclear submarines and the missiles, and the most powerful weapon of the United States since the end of World War II is the U.S. dollar. Okay, that's what they got the whole world on the U.S. dollar. They use that to basically manipulate the whole world. They use that to tax the rest of the world, because what happens is when the United States prints up money, right? What it's doing is it's basically diluting the existing money. So anytime the government reduces the buying power of your money, they've taxed you. Okay, so the United States taxes the entire world through money dilution, and the rest of the world is like, no, we don't want to be taxed like that anymore. Okay, we're gonna figure out some other current, some other monetary system here, and some other monetary payment system, and we're gonna deal you out. Okay, so that's what we're looking at here. Okay, so this is probably bigger than anything that like in my entire life. I'm 52 years old. I've never, in all the years I've been studying accounting and economics, I've never seen the United States status, right, as a world power in a more perilous, type of situation. Okay, because the United States is in real trouble here, right? Because the whole world is onto them, okay, and they want nothing to do with them anymore. So what's going to happen, right? So as the world moves to a different monetary system, so now they got all these dollars that are just floating around out there that nobody wants. So what happens with things that nobody wants? They lose value, and what's going to happen is those dollars are going to end up coming back into the United States. So now you've got trillions of dollars coming back into the United States, and yeah, you're talking about like hyperinflation, like you never seen before. Okay. So that's the situation that we're looking at as the world moves away from the U.S. dollar. You got the U.S. dollars are still out there, right? And now what about this? Because the thing that, let's step back for a second. Why does money have any value? Okay, and this is this is how money is designed. So even some other alternative system would probably run along the same lines. The reason why money has value is because at any given time, there's, you owe more money than money exists. Okay, so that's the foundation of the money system. That's why money has value, not because so much it's backed by assets, but because the money that everybody has to pay back is more than the amount of money exists. So it's kind of like trying to chase a carrot on a stick. You're never going to catch that carrot, so you're continually running forward, and the system is designed that way to keep people working. All right, that's how they keep everybody working 9 to 5, 5 days a week, 6 days a week in some cases, 7 days a week, because everybody is chasing after that carrot. So the system here is they want to get you on debt, because the nature of debt is that because there's not enough money in existence, it's very hard to pay it back. All right, so that means that they've got you on a hook for working nonstop to pay back something that you really can't pay back. Okay. Now, again, the way that it can ultimately be paid back is when more people come into the system and you get money from them so you can actually pay back. But when you get to the national, because remember, the last guy in, right, or the biggest player, there's no way they can possibly pay this. So in this case, it's the United States government, okay? The United States is like the last guy in now because they've made themselves such a big part of this system, okay, where they, you know, the national debt, let's say, is up to 35 trillion, and there's only 20 to 25 trillion worldwide. So they can't possibly pay back. And I mean, even like right now, like all the taxes they collect, that doesn't even add up enough to pay back the interest on this anymore. Okay, you know, and then you factor in the Social Security that they have to pay. The United States is like if you look at the numbers, right, get rid of the zeros, just look at, you know, the first digits. There's no way that the United States can possibly, you know, pay its defense budget, pay Social Security, and pay even the interest on this, right? They are bankrupt. Okay, so what happens? Okay, this is what's going to, you know, the world is moving away from it. What's happened? What's going to happen? What do we have to look forward to here? Okay, so the dollar is going to devalue. Okay, so what options does the United States have? Okay, so now we're looking at the options. Okay, well, one thing they can do is they can just shut out the rest of the world. Okay, they say, hey, you know what? All those dollars that are out there, they're staying out there. They're not coming back into the United States. You know, cut off the lines so that external money can't get into the United States. So that would, you know, kind of keep all that money from coming back in here and devaluating the U.S. dollars at almost like an exponential rate. So that's one option. Okay. Now the other option is to try and buy it back. Okay. So what do you mean by buy it back? Okay. So you got all this money out there externally that's going to be losing value. So the United States is going to, like, how you buy it back? Well, you basically have to offer some services. Okay. So what services does the United States have? What do they have? What's their main asset other than, you know, what their main asset was their monetary system? That's no longer a thing. What do they have left? They got the biggest military in the world, okay? So what I see the United States doing is provoking wars, right? More wars around the world, and then offering its protection services to buy back these dollars, okay? Very cheaply. Okay, so that's a way that I see the United States getting dollars out of circulation. Okay, so what's now the other, as far as the national debt, they're just going to cancel that. Okay, I mean, it's not like a new thing. I mean, Biden's been talking about canceling student debt loan, right? So, you know, canceling debt is, you know, because remember, this is just numbers on the computer, right? This isn't like, when the United States creates, remember, when we make money, well, when we create money, we have to put up a real asset, and the bank uses that asset to create money, right? And I explained how they create the principal, not the interest. But when the government creates money, they're not putting up any assets. So what's happening is they're just printing up this money. Essentially, they're diluting the money, which is the same as like you pull out a dollar bill and you split it in half and you say, hey, now I got $2 bills, okay? So that's what they're doing. They are, that's what they've been doing with this national debt. So by canceling the national debt, I mean, they may not do it all at once. They might do it in pieces, right? What they're doing is they're taking the money, right, that's been diluted, and they're putting it back together, and they're saying, well, now we have, that's all it is. I mean, that's, so it is, I mean, there's no reason why they couldn't just cancel the national debt. The only reason why this national debt number exists is to try and give some credibility to the system, okay? And at this point, it has no credibility. So there's no difference if they keep running this 35 trillion, run it up to 100 trillion, 200 trillion, a trillion. It doesn't make a difference. It's just, it's just a number in a computer that, it just keeps compounding. So at the point where everybody realizes that this $1 trillion national debt, it doesn't mean anything. It will never be paid back. It's just a number in the computer. I mean, it makes no difference if you just cancel it. Okay, so they will cancel it. They might try to, come up with some fancy names and try to, come up with some fancy economics and accounting terms to try and make it sound legitimate. They're just canceling it because it's not a real thing to begin with. it was never actually debt. It was money dilution. They took the money, the existing money, and they just took a dollar and they split in half, and then whatever parts were left, they split those in half again, and over and over and over again. And one of the things I tell people is if you look at a shovel from the year 1900 that moves 5 pounds of dirt, the value of that shovel, right? Let's say back then it cost 25 cents. I don't know, I'm just making up a number. Let's say it cost 25 cents, right? The value of that shovel in 1900 is not 25 cents. The value of that shovel is that it moves 5 pounds of dirt, okay? If we look at same shovel, right? Same wooden handle shovel made out of iron in 2024, okay? And let's say it costs $30 now, okay? It moves 5 pounds of dirt. What's the value of the shovel? It's not $30. It's not $25. It's not 25 cents. The value of the shovel is that it moves 5 pounds of dirt. Okay, every time you scoop it. So the dollar value that's associated with it doesn't mean anything. Okay, that's just a bookkeeping thing. The true value of the shovel is that it moves 5 pounds of dirt. So you can apply that to anything. The value of gasoline, right? If you got gasoline in your car, a gallon of gasoline moves your car 20 miles, okay? That's the value of a gallon of gasoline, okay? It's not whether it's $1.50 a gallon or $5 a gallon or $3.50 a gallon. The value of a gallon of gasoline is that it moves a car, 20 miles. That's the value of gasoline. So that's the right way to evaluate the value of things, okay? You look at what it actually does, not what dollar sign is connected to it, okay? So yeah, that's in fact, if we look at a barter system, is a really good way to understand import export, right? Because if you look at the barter, for years it looks like it's been looking like there's a trade deficit. There's more dollars going out of the United States versus dollars coming into the United States. Let's say from China, but get the dollars out of the equation, right? Okay. Look at it as a barter system, okay? Do you want more valuable things going out of the country, or do you want more valuable things coming into the country, okay? So the answer to that is you want more valuable things coming into the country, and nobody gives a shit about this bullshit money that they, that they keep creating on the computer. Is there more value going out, or is there more value going in? Okay, so in an ideal type of trading situation, okay, you want to be importing valuable things, right? Let's say, like manufactured stuff, right? And maybe exporting things that, like wheat or something that you have in excess, okay? So that's a good deal, right? Now, that's how you want to set up your trade deal. So you need to look beyond the dollar signs that are associated with it, okay? Because the dollar signs and the monetary valuation is something that can be manipulated, okay? So that's how I evaluate trade, okay? Is there more valuable things going out or valuable things coming in? Because I definitely want more valuable things coming in. And I'm pretty sure that China's kind of looking at the situation the same thing, saying, wait a second, what are we getting versus what are we giving? It seems like what they want is technology. Okay? That's what they value. They want technology. They want to be able to get technology and be able to copy it and reproduce it. So that's what they consider valuable. Okay, and the United States seems like they're exporting technology, which once the Chinese get, they copy. So they're actually, when the United States exports technology, they're losing on that deal, okay? Because once the Chinese learn how to copy that technology, they don't need to buy it from you anymore, okay? It makes a lot more sense for the United States to sell stuff like wheat, which, let's say, or corn, all right, stuff that maybe Chinese can't grow by themselves or for whatever reason, or can't grow enough of, okay? And they have to keep coming back to you for more, okay? So that seems like a much better trade deal, okay? So anyway, went off on a little bit of a challenge there, right? So yes, canceling the national debt, yeah, definitely. I mean, that's they're gonna make it sound like it's a big deal, but I mean, Biden wanted to try and cancel the student debt without even going through Congress. So yeah, I mean, canceling $35 trillion what? Of you know, binaries on the computer. It's not a big deal. Okay. Now, the result of this, right? Because here's the thing: you've got the result of this is that you got this money, right? Let's go past the dollars now. Let's look at you know. So you got this money in the United States, okay, and it's losing value. How do you make it get value? Okay, because you need to have a monetary system so people can trade. Okay, I mean, you know, bartering can only go so far because, you know, I might want something from you, right? But you don't, you know, I might want something from you, but you don't, I don't have anything to give you that you want. Okay, so you need a monetary system. So this is something I realized back in the I think in 94, 95, there was a recession over then. So leading up to that recession, we had a very hot economy. And then, you know, what I noticed is that like pays, right, salaries were going up, right? And then we had this recession, and what happened is a lot of companies laid off people, and it's not like those people never went back to work. What companies did is they did an employee swap, right? The people from this company went to work, you know, this company laid off its people, this company laid off its people, these people went to work for this company, these people went to work for that company at, let's say, a 20%, you know, pay decrease, okay? So a recession is essentially a reset, right? People lose their jobs, they're willing to accept less money, all right? So, you know, a recession reduces or basically gives more value to the dollar, because all of a sudden people are willing to, because they don't have dollars, they don't have work, they're willing to accept less money, right? And the dollar appreciates, okay? Well, where we are right now, right, with this worldwide, with all this money worldwide, this is going to require like a 1930s like depression, okay? Because, I mean, if you go back and you look at depression in 1930s, what happened? The money became very valuable, right? Because nobody had enough money, right? So anytime there's not enough money, right? So how do you make money gain value? You just take money out of the system, right? You take money out of the system, right? And what happens is, and there's many ways to do that. You know, one way that government takes money out of the system is by taxing you. So once they take money out of the system, it becomes more valuable, okay? And people are willing to work more hours for less money, okay? And that's how you reset the system. So long term, this is what this means, right? What's going on right now with BRICS and the rest of the world moving away from the US dollar. Ultimately, what this is going to mean is a serious depression in the United States, right? And other countries that, I guess, run on the US dollar, in an effort to give value back to the US dollar, because that's the only way that you can get the dollars to start taking value. Basically, people value things that they don't have enough of, okay? If you got lots of US dollars swimming around the system, people are like, yeah, you know, it's not very valuable. But if there's very few dollars in the system, right, if you take dollars out of the system, what happens is all of a sudden it becomes very valuable, okay? And, that, you know, my thoughts are this BRICS moving away from the US dollar is going to result in a very deep depression in the United States. That's going to probably last a long time. What I think now one of the options that the United States has, okay, one of the only other asset that it has besides its money is its war machine. So I think that a lot of people in power are going to look at the situation and say, hey, you know, before we try this deep depression strategy, let's try the World War III strategy, right? Let's see how that works out for us, right? So that's, you know, I think that's the gamble that people in power in the United States are going to take. They're going to start provoking wars around the world because, hey, you know, you got BRICS over here, they're nice and unified, and they seem like they got this other currency that they're building up. But what if we just blow that all up, right? So, you know, then they'll have no choice. They'll have to use US dollars if we blow up their banks, okay? So I think the United States is going to become very, very hostile over the next, you know, several years, okay? So let me know what you guys think. Drop some comments below, and we'll talk soon.